How are we doing?
Yes, all good, sir. How about yourself? I should have worn a suit. I remember you telling me about it, but you just like out dressed me completely.
It's we wear the suit as a meme. It's because it's like the oxymoron of everything that comes to building startups. It's like actually you could wear anything, just build the damn thing.
No, I love it. It definitely adds some flair to the building, I guess.
Ah, for sure, right? Like I need to get a red suit. I've got to get some Certus merch.
You will. What size? What size t-shirts you wear?
I've like get me a medium. I've got to beef out the arms a little bit because they
Nice.
I need those triceps rolling.
I love it. We gotta have like some guys in the gym just walking around with Certus merch all the time, just looking super jacked. I think that's like be the guerrilla marketing.
That might be the move. Might be the move.
Yes, sir.
Look,
Awesome.
I'd love some context on you and Certus for the stream, and then we can get straight into it. I have so many questions.
Absolutely, let's do it. Pleasure being on. Thank you for inviting me. So maybe to give a little bit of a context on what Certus is. So my name is Gurveer, co-founder and CEO of Certus AI. Certus is an AI voice agent for restaurants that answers every single phone call for them, takes orders, processes deliveries, book reservations, whatever the customer calls up for, Certus can handle it. But we also integrate with the whole restaurant tech stack. So think their point of sale system like Toast, Square, Clover, their delivery partners like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Deliveroo, or their reservation partners as well. And so what this means is we can take every single phone call from the customer, process it, send it to the kitchen so the chef can cook the food, dispatch it to a delivery driver who will then bring it to the customer, and the staff have to do nothing. And so our tagline is to replace the restaurant phone line, and our goal is to do that for every restaurant that uses the phone.
Why is this a problem today? Of all the problems to start solving, why is this the problem?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of experienced this problem myself. I grew up in my family's restaurants. They had 11 restaurants, and their first restaurant that they opened up, I was 9 years old, and
Were you
I
manning
would go every.
phones?
Yes, that was like my whole job. My parents had just opened up their first location, and the last thing that they could afford to do was miss a phone call because phone
Hmm.
calls are revenue, right? Orders, reservations, whatever you call it. And in the US, UK, and Canada, restaurants lose between 100 and 120 billion dollars a year just from missed phone calls. And last year, the restaurant market was valued at $1 trillion. This year is
Hmm.
going to be 1.5. And so the market is growing, meaning the demand is growing,
It's like a
but the phone
gigantic
line
step
just isn't
change.
solved. Exactly, massive, especially after COVID. People don't realize this. It's growing. We're past COVID levels, and it's just this truth where restaurants have no real way of solving this. Either they're hiring expensive staff members,
Hmm.
or they're outsourcing to call centers if they're big enough to do so. And this is like the first thing that will help them do this conversationally and better than this human staff.
The I've experienced picking up a phone and calling a restaurant and having AI on the other side. How do you get the nuance in just humanity in that, right? It's like it's I know I'm talking to a robot, but I'm okay with it if it does X. What is the X?
Yes. Um, I was listening to, I don't know how long ago this was, but I think this kind of reshaped the way that I look at it because this was like one of our concerns as well. Because I think hospitality, there's this human aspect of it, right? That's why you call
Hmm.
it hospitality. But I think we're kind of in this world where people just need to get things done, right? Especially when it comes down to an order or a reservation. And so I think Jeff Bezos said it best is like, I think it was Jeff Bezos I'm quoting. It could have been Churchill, who knows? But it's basically that when you're speaking to AI or when you're dealing with AI, it doesn't actually matter if it's an AI or a human as long as it gets the job done and it's done well. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like restaurant owners don't actually care that AI is manning their phones because their staff are enjoying, I mean, their customers are enjoying speaking to it. We have like restaurants that we're working with in towns full of elderly people who are the last people you would expect to enjoy speaking
Hmm.
to AI who actually love it because it's there for them. It can stay on for as long as they need to. It will suggest all the items that they need suggestion for. And more importantly than that, it will then place the order for them or make the reservation for them. And so as long as we can fulfill the customer's goal that they're trying to call up for, they don't actually care if they're speaking to an AI. And a lot of the times they don't actually notice it. And the conversational chasm, I guess, is like is closing and it's getting almost it's quite sometimes it's indistinguishable whether you're speaking to an AI or a
Oh,
human.
dude, I got a call from a sales rep or something. I knew it was AI, but what really threw me off was the background noise. Like today, you can
Yes.
throw in the calls humming, the murmuring in the background, and I was like, wait, hold on, is this real? Is this not? And then they started down,
Makes
and
you
the
second guess
pause
yourself.
really it does. Like the pauses were perfect. The conversation was good. I was on the phone for at least 3 minutes, and then realized my life was being wasted.
Yeah, yeah. We have the same thing. Like we put like a restaurant background noise. So if you doubt it and you hear people like clanging plates in the background, it's like, wait, is that actually an AI? So it
I
works, yeah.
metal on metal is such a distinct sound, and so like if you can weave that into the background noise, you know you're golden.
Exactly. Yeah, it works.
What makes for a good, not sales conversation, but a
Yeah.
conversational AI that helps someone book? Have you figured out what like the sticky point is where they convert?
Yeah. So I think that the main so the first aspect is that you have to be able to do that, right? And what that means is you have to integrate with the stack. And so that was like the first thing because if we can't pass the order to the reservation, I mean to the a POS or the reservation to the reservation system, we can't take those.
Right.
And so how it kind of works and what like the step before Certus is like you pick up the phone. There's like AI companies that will pick up the phone and when it comes to placing, they'll answer FAQs like a receptionist. But when it comes to placing a reservation, they send them a link to go do that themselves or send them a link to the ordering channel to go do that themselves. The customer didn't call up to go to the website, right? They would have done that themselves. So I think the first thing is just having the capability to take or to fulfill the goal. But I think the more important thing is not necessarily having this feeling that you're speaking to someone who is like rushed and not able to help you. And I think that's just something that comes indirectly from it being an AI. Um, and to be honest, I think it's not as nuanced as like a sales conversation, right? It's pretty simple when someone calls up because they have a couple of questions and then they want to get to their goal. It's just more about doing it in a way where it can actually handle those context windows of these like large menus and things of that sort.
Love it. The context window is probably one of the most complicated things in my mind. Is it actually as complex as we're all making out? Or are we betting that the models get larger context windows, they can hold more conversation, they can hold more knowledge, which means you can hyper personalize?
Yeah, we like I mean like the labs are doing a fantastic job and I think one of the cool things about being in this industry is like knowing that they're continuously like pursuing to make their models better. And we've had like jumps in performances sometimes where like in like wholeheartedly like we didn't make like a very significant change. It's like the model improved, right? And that could come down to either the voice itself or actually like the evals that we've built or the parallel agents around it. But I think in general, we've had to like figure out, till now at least, we've still had to figure out our own way of like handling these massive context windows of like 200 to 400 items with like nested modifiers or nested modifiers and like so many different options and variabilities around like how a pizza is made. You can do half and half tomato, garlic base, left side mushroom, the other side like jalapenos. It's ridiculous. But I think all in all, like because we've been able to figure that out quite well, that's actually been like a net positive to why
Hmm.
restaurants want to use us because humans aren't actually still good at that. They have to consistently look at the menu or type it in. And when it comes down to placing a pizza order that takes like 3 minutes to order one pizza because there's so many customizations, like staff just don't have the ability to be on the phone for that long because they need to serve the customers at the restaurant. So I think that we've been able to figure that out. I think the models will be better, but I think the important thing to know is like right now what we're seeing is that AI is actually better at like pointing out its own mistakes than preventing itself from making the mistakes in its first place. So I think it comes down to, yes, making it possible that the context window is good enough so that we don't hallucinate on the calls. But if that like 1% or that 0.5% does happen, what are the kind of like monitoring systems we have in place to be able to prevent that and notify the customer and the restaurant that that has happened and kind of correct that within a couple of seconds so it doesn't hinder the customer's order or the restaurant's reputation.
I'm sure you saw that it was OpenAI's Dev Day 2 or 3 days ago, 2 days
Yeah.
ago. What thoughts on
Yeah.
the app SDK and how that impacts the business?
To be honest, for us specifically, we haven't necessarily thought about it too much. I think the way in which like especially with the apps SDK, because I think that there's ways in which we could have built some of the things that they have done, right? Like they've just made it a lot more like they've centralized it in a way that the average consumer can use it, right? That's
Hmm.
like the main thing. It's kind of like your executive assistant, but businesses have been able to like build these in like the more vertical ways, specifically like with one or two apps in like their workflow.
Yeah.
This just centralizes it. So I think that it's not necessarily like made like a massive improvement for us because we have still been able to do like what we need to do without it. But I do think for other businesses it can be massive. And more importantly than that, I think the way in which they've made the barrier to entry to building tech with the like agent flow system, I forgot what they called it. They're like agent kit. I think that was incredible, and to see
And so
how
it was the agent
how
kit that you looked at and was like, wow, this is going to make leaps and bounds for us.
not necessarily for us, but I think for tech businesses in general. Like
Hmm.
I think yeah, I don't necessarily think that we saw like maybe I just haven't had time to because we had like the whole conference and stuff, the expo. But maybe I'll look into it. But I think the agent kit is something that caught my eye in the sense that I think it will really democratize the ability to use technology and also like lower the barrier of entry for someone who just wants to learn how to build without necessarily needing like learning how to code. And I think that's going to be really cool.
Do you look at what you're building as scaffolding to what the LLMs are able to do? Oh, sorry, the models are able to do, not just the LLMs.
Could you like give me an example of
So
what you mean?
obviously, Certus uses a combination of voice models, of audio models, well, potentially audio models in the future, and it
Yeah,
uses large language models
LLMs.
inside LLMs
Yeah,
inside of it, right? Um, those are being produced by other companies. And so, as we said previously, they're betting, you're betting, they're betting that everyone is consistently going to keep iterating, building better models, more specific, faster, higher quality. Do you look at what you're building with Certus as the infrastructure or the skeleton that sits around that, scaffolding that sits around that, that allows you to go and, or allows someone to go and execute in the way that you've built the product, i.e., I can call a business using all of these different tools, which you have been able to pull together in the most coherent way, and it gets the job done the best way.
got it. I definitely think so. And I think that there's like this power in verticalization that provides you a lot more data and understanding of the industry that you're working with than going
Right.
horizontal does. I think horizontal builds the tooling for verticalization, but verticalization really gives it the data and the insights that is required to make something phenomenal. And I think that like this is something that we're noticing as well, because I think that it's maybe not like generally because we're just focused on restaurants, but for sure on like a restaurant level, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Ooh,
Like, as
my
someone
parents
who's
own rest.
worked in restaurants, as someone who obviously
Yeah,
is like servicing restaurants now, like which one do you sit in and go like, ah, yeah, I'm this is home food.
yeah. Okay, so two things. My favorite cuisine is Thai. I love Thai. Um, I absolutely love it. I think like with Asian cuisine, there's just too much flavor. Like you can never try, uh, you can never try it all. But I think that one thing that I will always need to go back to is my parents' cooking because they had restaurants. I grew up eating Indian food in their restaurants, and no other Indian food satisfies me, which sucks because there's amazing restaurants everywhere. But I just need to try their food again, every
The
couple of weeks.
the Certus, I think I feel like it needs a leaderboard of the best restaurants in every single city that it operates in.
We'll have to do that. There's definitely a consumer aspect that we can build into this, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, for sure. I think we'll
In
definitely do
time,
that.
in time. Who was the first
Yeah.
customer? Was it a Thai restaurant? Just because of the bias?
No, our first restaurant was actually a like full service Greek restaurant.
Interesting.
We went and I went to him. I went to him a couple weeks back actually to go meet him, do an interview with him, get some insights from him because I think we're like talking to the screen and a lot of our customers we do that, but there's something special about being in person. And interestingly enough, we like learned some insights that we never knew we would being in person. But yeah,
What were
he
those
had one of the
insights?
best foods I've ever tried. Yeah, so I think one of the this was with another customer that we did because I did like a trip and I visited a few customers. One of the interesting things, and this was like after a whole day, we were just sitting and grabbing food and we were just chatting like on a friend to friend basis, I guess you can say. And he was showing me like his dashboard around like this aggregation tool that he has to like that collects all his data, all his like revenue metrics and stuff. And one thing that was super interesting is since he started using Certus, one thing that we noticed is obviously the phone orders had like increased a lot and the revenue had increased a lot, right? So
Hmm.
that was pretty obvious because he was missing tons of phone calls. But over time, his revenue went up, not only through the phones, but like, so not only like his average revenue went up because more people were calling in, but because people could call in and get through the door, his average calls per week had grown because he had like a VoIP system where he could see how many calls he was getting and how many calls he was missing. But his calls per week had grown because customers were now actually able to get through, and so they're calling more often. And another thing that was even more interesting is his total revenue had grown, but his revenue from his third-party platforms had gone down. So his like
Hmm.
Uber Eats, DoorDash, and things had gone down. But it seemed to have been this thing where that revenue had been transferred to the phone because those platforms charge 30% both to the restaurant and the customer. So the customers experience a much higher price. But now that they can order directly through to the restaurant, it's easy and they can get delivery from the restaurant rather than these third-party platforms. It seemed to be this thing where customers had realized it and had shift their buying habit to the phone, which was like one of the craziest things that I hadn't necessarily experienced myself.
That is really interesting. And so, like, you are with Certus, it's actually changing the buying habit of the consumer versus just
Yeah.
servicing them in a way that allows them to do the thing they want to do.
It's really
Was
interesting.
that, did you know that that was going to be a byproduct or not at all?
So the way in which I looked at it is like these kind of like third party Goliaths, I could say,
Uh
do
huh.
really like it kind of sucks. Like the 25 to 30% on every order for a restaurant that's a mom and pop is unbelievable. And so our way was kind of like empowering the restaurant to be in this position where people can call up so that they can get those direct revenue through that phone. But it wasn't necessarily this thing where we thought that the shift would be so quick,
Hmm.
right? Because this is I'm talking about like after like 6 weeks of data,
Not
not
six
like six
months.
months.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 weeks of data. And so that's, I think, was the surprising aspect of like how quickly that would be. And I think it comes down to, again, like restaurants are so community driven to some degree that people talk.
Hmm.
And, like also like his customers would come up to we had this story where one of his customers came to the restaurant and was like, "Hey, I spoke to like this new guy on the phone and like, who is he?" I was like, "No, it was AI." And this guy like started like looking through the window. He's like, "No, he's probably back there." And we got this all on camera. It was so funny. And he couldn't believe he spoke to an AI. And so I think like the community was just super surprised with it and just started calling up more often.
With restaurants that have huge numbers of like oh, not SDKs but SKUs, i.e. Chinese restaurants that like feel like
Yeah,
they've got 100 to 200. I think Indian restaurants as well these days. There's just
it's
everything on
unbelievable.
them, right? So
Yeah,
you could look at a menu and you've got like 100 to 150 different variations of the types of food you can have. How do you deal with that? Is it just a
yeah.
filtering
Well,
system?
no, I think the thing is like when we first started, we thought about potentially building this like MVP version where we would only take restaurants with a certain amount of SKUs and a certain amount of menu items. But the kind of realization that we had is like if we're doing that, we're kind of taking the easy way out, not
Yep.
the MVP version. The MVP version is that it can pick up every single phone call and know every SKU and take an order, right? The cool things on top of that is layering things like memory, where like something that we're working on right now. Like, for example, if you walk to your local barista and he's like, "Oh, you want like a mate again today?" It's kind of the same thing, like where you call up and they know based off your phone number what you've ordered and what you like. That's not the MVP, but that's something that we can build on top of the product. And so it's kind of just this thing where like we had to figure that out for us to be able to go to the market. And it's kind of like solving the harder problem that not necessarily many people would want to try and solve. That kind of like separates us, that allows us to take on these restaurants with massive context windows. And so there's a few ways that we've done it, which is pretty interesting, I would say.
Is that the secret source of Certus?
Um, I would say it's one of them. Like I just think that like I think
Give me the mental model. Don't give away the crown jewels.
sure. I think the way in which you kind of have to look at it is like these conversations are very like you have to like when we talk about AI in today's world over the phone, it's like there people call it conversational AI, and that's the truth. It has to be conversational. And so if you have like a database or like a database that's outside of whatever platform like your like say like your voice system that you've built, if you're using another database outside of that that can store that context in a way where it causes less hallucinations because you're triggering that every inquiry rather than having it at the top of the context window of that model. Yes, it makes it more accurate, but now you're waiting 3 to 4 seconds before you can like answer the customer's answer, right?
Hmm.
So it's kind of this thing where like someone asks you about the menu, and then you're like, okay, give me 1 second to check for you. It then pulls that out of this database that's outside of your core system, brings that in, and has the context. It's much less likely to hallucinate, but it just isn't providing the best system. And so that's what we used to do. And then the way in which we kind of like did it is like really understanding how like AI speaks with context and memorizes context and then putting it at like bringing it into the core system so you're not necessarily using like a database that you're pulling from. So I think that was the hard thing, and we're still dealing with that, to be honest. Like I said, we still have some hallucinations here and there, but much less of a case. And I also think that the industry is quite forgiving to us, because it's not necessarily like you're dealing with, a TripAdvisor like system. I can't remember what it was, but like there was like a flight attendant AI that like refunded like couple $1,000 worth of like a
Yeah, I've
ticket or
seen
something,
this.
right? Like for us, it's kind of like a mix up of maybe like a $5 starter or like worst case like a $12 item, and we take that very seriously. Like every single time that's happened, which is very very little, we obviously have our edge case like kind of like protection measures in place, but we also call up the customer for the restaurant, place that order correctly for them, refund the restaurant. So we work very closely with our customers, and they understand that this is just a game, and this is something that's going to get better in the meantime. But we're taking every measure to prevent that right now.
Was it that thinking about how? Was it that thinking about the use case and the way that you view this world that got you into YC?
Ooh, super interesting. Yeah. I think one thing that YC saw was definitely the kind of like experience that we had, right, in the restaurant industry. But I think the main thing was just like how much effort we'd put into like trying to build something after failing a few times even, right?
Hmm.
Like so I'm 19, but I started my first startup when I was 17 and we were in the restaurant industry. And so we were helping restaurants grow through like a system that we had built. It was working well. And then we pivoted multiple times after that. We'd worked with, 30, 40 restaurants. We'd done like just over $200,000 in revenue. And I think that one thing that YC saw was like, no matter what, over those last 2 years, nothing stopped us from continuously like trying to push, learn, and like make customers happy beyond measure. And I think that was like one of the biggest things because again, at the end of the day, we could have applied with because we applied with slightly separate idea, which was like a different use case. But the main thing is just like if they bet on the idea, it wouldn't make sense because 40% of their people that join YC change ideas, and so they can't
Mm.
necessarily bet on the ideas. It has to bet on the founder. And I think that that kind of like obsession over making sure that what you build for who you build is phenomenal. And then like if it's not phenomenal right now, you're willing to do anything to get it there.
That time spent in the Bay over that period of time, what was that like for you? Obviously, we've had a lot of people come on the show that have gone to the Bay, come
Yeah.
back, have gone to YC, gone through YC. One of the first guests on the show ever
Yeah.
had been in the, I think it was the YC 21 batch in Hannah Banerjee from Clear, but had done it remotely.
Wow.
For you being in
Oh yeah.
there, what was it like boots on the ground? Is it everything that lives up to the hype? Does it actually change the way that you think about building a product today?
For me, it was everything and more, to be
Right.
honest. I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. Not many ambitious people there, kind of like stuck out like a sore thumb. The only reason I met our co-founder and CTO was because he was at the gym wearing a, do you know who Alex Hormozy is?
I do know who Alex, the nose tape, right?
Yeah, the nose tape. So he was wearing an acquisition.com hat, and no one had like approached him about this because no one knew him, because no one would like try and study like go to market and like understand how to build products and stuff. But because he was just wearing a brand that I recognized, I mean that my other co-founder Adam recognized, he went up to Isaac, who's our CTO, and was just like, "Yo, I see you wearing an acquisition.com hat." He gifted him a book, and that's how we kind of met actually. And so like if you were ambitious and you were doing something, you stuck out like a sore thumb. I then moved to London 2 years ago to do my A levels, and that was like a bit bigger of a step. And I think
Hmm.
definitely now more than before, like 2 years ago. But I think going to the Bay was just like a complete paradigm shift in understanding like how many people there are actually out there who want to build something massive where like money isn't the main driving factor, like status isn't the main driving factor, which seems like the case in like, people where people aren't trying to build something for people. And the main thing is just to create an impact. And I think being surrounded by those people was like one of the most invaluable experiences. And I personally think like if I did YC online, like I probably wouldn't have got as much value out of it as I wanted to. But because I was in person, I got way more than I expected to. So I think that's like how big the delta was.
Interesting. What was the favorite place to eat in the Bay?
I'll be so honest with you. We got an apartment that had a gym, a cafe at the bottom, workspaces at the bottom, and a
The
living room
Certus
that had
boys did
nothing
not
in.
leave. They didn't leave the
We
house, did they?
yeah, it was literally we went to gym in the apartment. If we needed to get coffee that we didn't make at home, we went downstairs in our apartment. When we were working, it was in our apartment. The only time we left was to YC. I think YC took us out for dinner once. I can't even remember the name. It was really bad. Like I should have been eating at restaurants. Oh, actually, Hazy's in Hayes Valley. That was the one. That was really good.
Was it Thai?
No, it wasn't. It was like it had everything. It had like burgers and like pasta and steak and everything.
A little bit of
But
that European American blend where you just like
yeah,
everything's
yeah,
rolled
yeah,
into
yeah.
one.
Our group partner took us there for a dinner, so that's the only one I really remember.
Yeah. Who do you mind me asking? Who's the partner?
Yeah, Tyler Bosmany, he co-founded sorry, Clever. It was like a single sign-on platform for schools in the US, I think, and a little bit more. And I think at its peak, like 70% of all K-12 students in the US were using his platform, which is unbelievable.
Was it the right fit? Was it the right partner and the right fit for Certus?
Um, to be honest, I didn't get to necessarily meet a lot of the other partners. Like the partners that I met, all of them are incredible. And I think the cool thing in the way YC works is like the partner chooses you, right? It's not like
Mm,
YC chooses who to like invest in and then they assign partners. The partner chooses you. And I think the reason for choosing you, they truly feel like it's a good fit for them. And I
mm.
think that like definitely like transcends to the value that we get from him. And I could have not wished for a better group partner. He was absolutely amazing. And I think the 2 to 3 pieces of advice he gave us definitely changed the like trajectory of our company.
What was the single one that created the most impact for you?
Definitely, like it was kind of along the lines of like to go fast, you need to go slow.
Mm.
And I know in like startups it's very counterintuitive, and I think that's like the whole point is like everything is very subjective. But in our position, we had just got into YC. We had like restaurants who we had sold multiple different things to. We hadn't got like a solidified product. And we didn't have a really good way of like actually like onboarding them and launching them extremely fast, which we do now. And he was just like, you need to stop everything. You need to just focus on product for the next 6 weeks. We have like 9 weeks in total. You have 6 weeks. That's all you're gonna do. You're not gonna get new customers. You're not gonna go to market. You're not gonna like do anything. All you're gonna do is speak to customers and build a product. And in those 6 weeks, we built something so good that we could onboard customers so fast that when it was time to actually launch, we grew like we grew 100% week on week for 4 weeks in a row. We blew like any revenue number that we'd ever done in our previous startups. And it was just like, yeah, it definitely changed my way of looking at how you build a company where it's like through the customer rather than like through trying to onboard as many people as quickly as possible.
Love that. Last question before we let you go. We love to ask founders on the show, who's on your Mount Rushmore of founders? The top four that you look at and go, wow, these are some of the most incredible people I've read about, I've consumed. I look at and try to think about the world the way they think about the world.
I think these might sound pretty generic. I think I'll start with the one that probably isn't very generic. I think the first one that comes to mind, and I don't know if you can call him like a founder and like a tech founder, but
No,
I
it's
think
founder in
definitely,
general. It's not, it doesn't have to be a tech
yeah,
founder.
yeah, I definitely think Rockefeller. I
That's a hell of
think
a guy.
yeah, I think I was just so engrossed in his content, and more importantly than that, the way he like built industries from the ground up, the way he did it in an era where like, it wasn't like everything was going in his direction, how ruthless he was, in the way in which he made decisions, how tactical he was in the way in which he thought about things. I think that if there's one founder I could emulate, I think that would definitely be like him. I think a modern day version of him is definitely Elon. I think just the way in which you manage like I don't know what it is like seven companies that are like more valuable than probably like 99.9% of companies out there. I think that's incredible the way in which he does that. Jeff Bezos has really taught me a lot about how you build a company through customers. I think
Mm.
like his insights and his way of thinking is one of the best, not necessarily from like a first principle standpoint, but from like an impact standpoint and the way in which you serve people and how you do it for like other people, not for yourself. Like his good quote about like I'd rather have like a tiny fraction of a massive pie than like 50% of a small pie. And I think that itself talks about how much you have to focus on providing value to the world. Um, and I would say the last one, the fourth one, um,
You got Rockefeller, Elon, Bezos.
yeah, I got Rockefeller, Elon, Bezos. Um, I think right now, I think just someone who kind of like had everything go against them and has just been able to pull it out, more like a recognition thing, is definitely Brian Chesky. I think it's unbelievable what he was able to accomplish after COVID and how he kind of
Hmm.
like took the reins and changed the way that the company was run. And I think that's very hard to do, especially at a company that scale. And it really shows you that like when something's truly your life's work, you'll overcome any challenge to make things happen.
He revived passion, in my opinion. His thoughts on founder mode, and
Unbelievable.
getting back into that, I deeply resonate with it from a passion perspective. Like I had this conversation multiple times on the show and offline, and it's this 996, this hustle culture. It's all the same thing. It's just passion. It's a passion for what it is that you're building and for your customers. Period. In my book.
It's truly admirable, and I think every founder should strive for that quality.
Well, it seems like you're doing it at Certus. My friend, this has been a pleasure. We're going to have to get you and the co-founders back on the show, get some merch going.
Absolutely. We'll definitely send it to you. I'm gonna be in the UK for another like 10, 15 days, so I'll pop you a text. Give me the best address and I'll send you some merch.
Wonderful. Dude, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you very much.